Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. I know Susan Stevenson will be joining us momentarily. So I apologize, my dog is in the background. I'm going to try to quiet her down, but I do want to call the meeting to order. Tonight is the Wednesday, March 19th, 2025 meeting of the school committee. Can everybody just confirm from the school committee that you're here and can hear us? Chris, can you start?
I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay, and then Kyla?
I'm here. I can hear you.
Great. Jamie?
Yes, confirmed.
Okay, great. And then I know Carolyn is here from NESDEC.
Okay.
And we have Sheena Martin, our HR district.
Hi, everyone.
So, and I see Susan Stevenson is logging in right now.
And Nancy Mara is here from NESDEC as well.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you. So,
I can't hear anything. Nancy, we can hear you, so you might want to mute.
so I'm going to go ahead and ask Kyla if you would like to report out from the search committee. And I'm just going to step aside for a minute to take care of my dog in terms of announcing the 3 finalists.
Absolutely. Do you want me to?
I have no.
So you're having trouble hearing Nancy? Is that the problem?
You need to either check out or mute, Nancy. Okay, sorry.
All right. So the looking for the actual name. Hold on. The superintendent search committee met. There was 12 individuals. We interviewed a total of 11 candidates over the course of 4 evenings. And we narrowed it down to, we had excellent candidates. We had a large number of resumes that had come with us, many very well qualified candidates, and their questions, their answers to our questions were very thoughtful and in-depth. And we narrowed it down to 3 individuals that we're putting forward. And I'm looking for their full name in case I do know. Hold on just a second. So we are going forward Evan Bishop, Mark McLaughlin, and the third is Ross, and I'm looking for the last name, sorry, hold on. McCorkin.
Great. Thank you, Kyla. Sorry to, I had to step
Sorry,
out.
what was the last name?
Ross McCorkin.
Ross Mulkerin, Mulkerin.
Great, thank you.
And
Go ahead, Kyla.
Mark McLaughlin is currently the superintendent in South Hadley, Mass. And Ross Mulkerin is currently the director of finance and operations for the Neshoba Regional School District.
Great, thank you. And I think people locally know Evan Bishop is the current high school principal at Hopkinton High School. So did everybody have received the information? I know that Georgette had sent it out as well, the packet from NESDEC. The first part of it was the candidate profile, and it goes through and talks about the interview stuff. Just want to make sure everybody is on that same page before Carolyn, if you want to take us through the next steps.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad you could be here. I'm excited to be here. thank the screening committee for its excellent work. You did have a really remarkable number of candidates, a large number of candidates that we haven't seen. Frankly, we haven't seen that. So we were very pleased. And they did the hard work of winnowing it down to your 3 finalists. And I'm assuming that the public resumes for those finalists were sent to the district and will be put up on your website. Kylie, yes? Okay, Sheena. So the public will be able to find the public resumes. Each member of the school committee will be sent a link to access the applications. They're the confidential applications. I mean, the confidential personnel folder for each of the 3 candidates. You'll receive that this evening. We'll talk about next steps. Nancy and I have talked, Nancy Kavanaugh and I have talked, and she was talking about your interest in inviting both the candidates to Hopkinton and going to see the candidates in their home district. And then
I can say that this committee thought very strongly about us visiting the 2 candidates from out of district in their own.
Yes, thank you. That's what Nancy was saying. My recommendation is that you treat all 3 candidates the same. Because the district, the community knows your internal candidate in one role. They haven't perceived that candidate in the larger superintendent's role. So this is a chance for him to change that perception, to visit the district as would any other candidate, to have an opportunity to meet with the parents and meet with the teachers, and to have his evening interview for you. And we're going to talk about what you might want to do when you do a site visit to the candidate's district, to do the same thing in your own district. Treat all 3 candidates equal or equitably. So with that said, I'm assuming that you have the public resumes. I'm assuming that you received a list of references. If you didn't, Nancy, you can text me, or Sheena can text me and tell me you have not received those, because we're going to talk about how you call references tonight. Okay.
So Sheena, did you receive that? I did see something that came through from NESDEC today, but I have not caught up through the rest of my day's email.
So what I saw from NASDAQ today was the links for the community to put on our website. I have not seen any references though.
Did you get the public resumes?
I got 3 links for the website. I haven't clicked on them.
Okay, so
That's the only thing I've gotten.
all right. So I need to have the others sent out to you, because you will get a resume for each of the candidates to put on the website. You will also get, I'll go on to that now, each candidate will provide a starter kit of references. We ask them to provide, it's almost like Noah's Ark, about 12 to 15 references to administrators, to school committee members, to municipal leaders, to parents, to classroom teachers, etc., down the line. And you'll get that list of references that will have the person's name, position, email address, and phone number. You may call whomever you wish, but this is a list that they're starting. You might say, you know, I'm interested in calling whatever municipal leader, or I would like to talk to a person in this position in the district. And you can request that. You can even, when you're talking to one reference, say, is there someone else that you think I should talk to about this? Or who would be the best person to talk to about this budget or whatever it is? And you can do that. When you get the lists, you can't have 7 people calling one person. So my recommendation is that Nancy, as the chair, or whomever she delegates, takes a look, and whoever on the committee volunteers to call references, volunteers to make themselves available to call references. Divvy up the 3 lists among those people so that one person might call all the school committee members for each one of them. Another person might call all the administrators for all 3. Another calls all the teachers. That way of calling references gives you a better flavor of the 3 than calling all the, one person sitting down and calling everybody from the same person. Okay, so you're going to divide up the references. There are some suggestions in your packet of what to ask when you're calling a reference. I like the section on doing a site visit when they say you're going to the district, some of the questions you may ask. I think some of those make excellent reference call questions too. My advice is to write out your question or 2 or 3 in advance, have the questions in front of you, and take a few notes when you call. My advice also is for the people you've been selected to call, you email them. They'll have their email address and tell them, I need to talk to you. I need a 10-minute conversation about this. This person has applied to be superintendent, is a finalist to be superintendent, and gave your name as a reference, or I would like to talk to you about this candidate. And either ask them to email back with a good time to call, or you say, is there a time tomorrow afternoon that would be convenient for me to make that call? It's harder to cold call and just say, hey, I'm calling. It's best to give them a heads up. When you call, you don't have to write down everything they say. If they say something concerning, make a note. If they say something positive, you can say, and we'll talk about how to deliberate, but the references were very positive. People had excellent things to say about this candidate or whatever it is. So you don't want to quote a reference unless you tell them you're going to quote them, and you can't even give away their position. For instance, a town administrator in that town said, because it's so traceable, or a school committee member said, can't do something like that. I'll circle back to that. So you're going to be calling references for the candidates. Like Sheena mentioned that she received a link to put up on your website for each of the 3 candidates. There's a link with their name to put on your website. And now, as the community hears about these candidates, and as the community meets the candidates in various ways, they can go on the website and click on that link and give the school committee feedback on the candidates. So that's a way to gather community input. You will be escorting the candidate around the district. We're going to talk about that. As the candidate is going around the district in their day in the district, people will want to provide feedback, and that's a way that you can say it's on the website. Go right on, give your impressions of this candidate. You also will be getting impressions of the candidate as you escort him or her, or I guess it's all hims around the district. You'll want to make some notes yourself, just impressions of how they answer particular questions, or something that you noticed that was very positive about their day in the district. Okay, so what you're going to do is invite the candidate to spend a day or a half day in Hopkinton. And I don't know where Sheena is in that process. I can help her design a day. If there's particular things you want the candidate to see in the district, make sure that Sheena knows. But generally what the candidate does is walk with an escort around the different schools. When you go into the school, usually the principal takes the candidate around and talks with him. You want opportunities for them to see students, to look in classrooms, just get a general sense of the school. You want the candidate to have an opportunity to have a meet and greet with parents, Usually that's after school. And a meet and greet with teachers. Most districts plan to have a lunch with administrators in there somewhere. So during the course of the day, they'd stop in, and administrators are invited to join them for lunch, a quick sandwich or whatever it is. I can do most of that offline with whoever is going to be planning the day in the district. If you're going to the candidate's district, you ask that, can't you decide among yourselves what it is that you want to see, who it is that you want to see in that district. I mean, you'll drive up, you want to have a focus. What is it we're going to learn? What is it what types of things do we want to take a look at? You'll let Sheena and me know in enough time to let the candidates plan that out for you. We'll say to the candidate, this is what the delegation from Hopkinton wants to see. And then they'll say, all right, then I think I'll have them meet over here in this room and bring people to them. And then I'll take them to see X, or however it's going to happen. The candidate will plan out your site visit. You have to provide the day you're coming, the time you plan to arrive, the time you want to leave, and what you want to see. And then the candidate will work with Sheena and me to make that happen. Any questions about that? Okay. When you're having the candidate in the district and you are going to the candidate's district, you're going to want to capture your perceptions. So you want to be very careful. When you're taking notes, you know this as a school committee. You're careful when you take notes that you stick to the topic. If the topic is special education, then you write and you know this, the people who were on the screening committee, when a candidate was answering questions, you talk about the substance of his answers. You talk about, so that when you come to deliberation and you're deliberating and you're talking about, for instance, the budget process, you have something substantive to say. Candidate A, I heard this, I saw this, I saw indications of this. Candidate B, you want to be able to make comparisons in your own mind among the candidates. And the only way that you can do that is if you choose things that you're going to look at for all three and listen for all three. So when you're interviewing the candidates, you want to be taking notes about the substance of their answers. You want to be taking notes when you're walking around the district about, do they interact with students? Do they look comfortable with interacting with students? Were they greeting people in the hallways, that type of thing, but not personal comments. You don't want to make comments that could be perceived as, personal. You really want to be careful about that. Any questions about that? Go ahead, Jamie.
Do the notes that we all take when we're doing these different roles, do they become public, or are they for us to share among ourselves, like usually in the process?
They're usually your personal notes, but you can,
right, but following the standards, obviously.
Yes, following the standards. Exactly. Same standards apply. All right, so what you're going to do is for next week, I would assume you're going to start and if not, then shortly, you should be planning what days you want to interview. Do you have those all chosen? What days?
We have not selected dates to interview with.
Okay.
So would you recommend going into the districts on the site visits first, or doing the interviews first?
It depends on, you don't want to drag this out too long. Now you've got your finalists. You don't want to make a big process of it that goes on for good goodness knows how long. So if you have your site visit delegation, if you think you know who's going on the site visits and you could get those up and running next week, go for it. And then start your days in the districts the following Monday or following Tuesday and finish it up because you have to deliberate. So you know, take another 2 weeks maybe and then make your decision. Does that feel comfortable enough to you?
It does. I think it makes sense to start with the site visits next week, get those up and running as quickly as we can, put the team together that's going to go, and then to bring candidates into the district and to do the interviews. I think it's important for the community to know, because I know there are people who are watching this live because they were curious about the finalists, to know that there would be an opportunity for them to have that time to sit and hear from the candidates and to provide feedback directly to the school committee ahead of when we make our decision.
And my recommendation, and it's generally the way things are done, is if your school committee is videotaped, you know, is on, then you ask the company to hold the videos until after all 3 candidates have interviewed, and then you play them. If they interview on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, then all day Friday, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday, people can sit down and watch the 3 interviews and provide their feedback. So you want to provide opportunities for people who can't attend the interviews to watch the interviews and to give feedback, but you don't want to live stream them while they're happening because it gives an unfair advantage and blurs when you're trying to make a decision between the candidates. You can't tell who's already heard the questions and who has not, that type of thing.
Do you have a suggestion for how long this interview should be? I know we had a certain amount of time for the screening committee, so for the school committee, how long should that one be?
90 minutes. It should be 90 minutes. And there's a sheet I gave out to the screening committee, but if you have a 90-minute interview and you have 7 members, right? Yeah, who would be asking questions. If everybody wanted to ask, what you have, Jamie? There's 5 members? Okay, I don't know. There's so many names on here. I thought I was mistaken. Okay, so you have 5 members. All right. If everybody wants to ask 2 questions, that's 10 questions, and you have a good 9-minute time. That's a long time though, but you have a good 9 minutes to communicate with the candidate. That allows you to ask follow-up questions. You know, when you ask your question, you can say, oh, well, could you talk a little bit more about the parents with that? Could you bring that back and tell me how that works, you know, on the elementary level or something like that? It also shortens up the time when you think about if you want to have an opening question and time at the end for the candidate to talk about their candidacy, and we'll talk about the kinds of questions you can ask. So I recommend that each school committee member plan 2 questions, and we'll talk about that tonight, to ask. And that if you say, well, gee, we should really have a better question about technology in there somewhere, then you add a question to your list, and you decide. When the candidate comes in, and the chair, Jamie, will open the interview by saying who they are, the length of time of the interview, how many people would be asking questions, that there'll be time at the end for the candidate to speak or to, you know, you'll know by that time what type of questions they're going to ask. And so you set the tone, Nancy, as the candidate is there. You caught the school committee members look to you and you say, all right, Jamie, would you please ask your question? Or Chris, you know, you direct them to ask their question. If you allow enough time, it won't feel pressure to think, oh my gosh, they're going over the 3 minutes. And I know in the screening committee, it can feel very rushed. You don't want that at the school committee level. You want to give the candidate a time to answer the question. Now, what will happen is some candidates will not use all 90 minutes. Fine. You don't have to drag it out. You ask your questions. If it ends early, it ends early. But you don't also want to be rushing the candidate through responses. So you can decide if you start with the basic 2 per candidate and then have a good opening and a good closing time, that narrows your time down to talk with them to maybe 6-7 minutes per question. I think that'll work well. Any questions about that? In your packet are some good school committee questions that you can build from. Sheena, if you wouldn't mind providing the school committee members with the questions, the sample questions, if you have them from the packet, from the screening committee, and then Kyla and Sheena and Susan, the questions that you actually ask the candidates too from the screening committee. So the school committee knows what it has access to, a resource of questions and the questions that you actually ask the candidates. Any questions about that?
I have one, and just because I know everything was confidential, so now we're giving this school committee the questions that we asked, but we can't provide any feedback on the answers, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So if I could just follow up on Sheena's questions. So some of the questions, seeing that were asked in the screening round, the school committee might also want to know the answer to that, because obviously 3 of us weren't there. It would seem like some of the questions might be repetitive. Is that?
They might be repetitive. They might be phrased differently. They might be more complex. They might be from a different perspective, but I think that it would be remiss of you not to ask a comprehensive budget question or a special education question. I think that people are expecting to hear curriculum questions and leadership questions and culture building questions. You have your successful candidate profile that was developed from community input, and people, their voices were pretty strong about looking for, I get your profile here. I know you have it, but instructional leadership, using data, knowing, how does the candidate know when a program is effective? What criteria do they use? What data do they use? How do they monitor effectiveness? Have they done anything about it if they found a program to not be meeting whatever standards or criteria they use? So those kind of things, and they want community engagement. People want that's unless you want the forecast from Alexa in Arlington. So community engagement was huge, and operations and fiscal management. So, and in the profile, there's the 3 areas, and then there's all these indicators of what somebody with real skill and competence in those areas would know and be able to do, and would be doing, what you would see. So you can take that and read through it, because that came from the community, and you worked on it for a long time. So you take a look at that and you can ask a question. How do you do this? How have you done that? Talk about a time when you actually, what, if we were to bring you into this community, what proof would we have that you have these skills? You don't want to ask theoretical questions like, what do you think about X? Or do you believe as we believe? Because of course they're going to say they do. You want to have indicators. You want to see evidence. So you want to ask your questions so that people provide evidence. What I'd like to do tonight, I'm not sure that if you're ready to do it, but would be for each of you to talk about 2 areas where you might want to prepare your question. Does anybody have an area where they really want to ask a question? So that we can, Sheena, you might want to jot this down if they provide any. Have you thought about?
For people that they want to look through the packet as well, there are definitely some good suggestions on areas, even if you don't know what the question you want to ask is, specifically areas that you might want to put under your belt
Right.
for what you're working on.
Right, instructional leadership, community engagement, operations and fiscal management. I'd like to put a process in place and a deadline for some getting your question. The different from the screening committee, the whole school committee is not going to vet your questions. But some, because, and you can only have one-way communication. So when your question is ready, you send them to whomever you agree to send them. And then that person will look to see, you know, are they all about one thing, which I'm hoping not. That's why I'd like you to choose some themes. Are they too alike? Is there a gap? So you need to, when you're asking a question, say, have we covered everything? I'm going to come back to that. So I want you to be thinking, even now, what area do you think you might want to write a question around? 2 questions around. And Kyla, are you comfortable showing Nancy the sample questions from the sample packet that I gave out at the training session with all the sample questions? Because Nancy, it would fall to you or your designee to ask the opening question. And generally that's a question where you want to make the candidate feel comfortable. And one of the questions in the packet that we have, you know, is that the school committee could ask is, you know, why Hopkinton and why do you, something like that. But you need to put a time on it. Otherwise the candidate will run away with they'll still be talking 20 minutes later about that. So you really have to say, you know, we have this many questions and this amount of time, but we'd like you to take 5 minutes or so and just talk to us about this. And then you can ask how you want to phrase, you can phrase your last question. Is there anything about your candidacy that you wish to tell us we haven't asked? Is there something you'd like us to know? Or now that you've had a chance to spend the day in the district, this could even be the opening one. Now that you've had a chance to spend a day in the district, talk about your impressions of the district and why you want to be our superintendent. You can make that, you can work that into something stronger, and I can help. All
So
right.
yeah, I'm absolutely comfortable with the opening and closing of it. I think just in terms of, and Sheena, I'm going to throw you on the spot a little bit if that's okay. But I think it would be helpful if people sent you what areas they want to do, the questions they have specifically, just to make sure that we're not inadvertently going to violate open meeting law.
You're talking to me? You want them to send them
Yeah,
to me?
no, talking to Sheena.
Oh,
If it's okay with you, once people have chosen the specific questions they want to ask, for you to be the person that screens to make sure that they're not too similar.
Yes, that's fine with me. And I agree that we probably shouldn't really talk about them tonight, just because this is a public meeting.
well, you can talk, not, I agree. You shouldn't be vetting your questions, but it's fine to talk about areas that you want to ask your questions tonight if you want to choose your areas. Let me see, I'm just going down this. Oh, I want to talk to you about deliberations. All right, when all this is said and done, you're going to meet to deliberate. This is going to be public. It's going to be memorialized. It'll be watched, trust me, by people from the candidates' districts and in the future, because only one person is going to be appointed. So the remaining 2 candidates, if they apply elsewhere, people will come back and watch. You need to be very careful about how you present yourself as a school committee. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think a lot of people outside of Hopkinton are turning into the Hopkinton school committees on a regular basis, but in this case, it will be. And first impressions, you want to make a good first impression, and you want to make a professional impression. So your job is not to determine if somebody would make a good superintendent, or if somebody is qualified. They're qualified and they would make a good superintendent. Your job is to determine if they are a match for what Hopkinton needs in a superintendent. So you aren't looking for a match for Hopkinton. That's your lens. And I think, Nancy, when you open the deliberations, you need to acknowledge the hard work of the screening committee, acknowledge I guess the happy problem that they faced by having an abundance of candidates that were, qualified. So, and then you want to talk about the fact that you've got 3 qualified candidates before you and because it will be a difficult decision to make. And that you are looking for, that's the point where you want to talk about your successful candidate profile and what the school committee is looking for, and that you are looking for the best match for what Hopkinton is looking for. Okay, so then in that case, when you're talking about the candidates, you'll each feel that one might be stronger than another in different areas or in general, however you feel. You do not, please, I'm asking you nicely, do not denigrate candidates in public. It's not necessary. It doesn't look good. And frankly, it's in poor taste. So what you want to do is when you've got the candidates, you talk about, I feel candidate A, I feel strongly that our special ed program, whatever it is, and I feel that candidate A in both the site visits and the interview really understands that, really gets what we're about and what we need. I heard this, I heard this, I heard this in the special education, and I really feel that that candidate was really strong in that area. Somebody else might say, I heard that too. Now, don't panic at this point. If that's not the candidate you feel that you want for superintendent, you're here to deliberate and to listen. So a candidate might have really strong answers in one area, really strong answers in 2 or 3 areas, but not be in the end the overall match for your district. Somebody else says, I heard all of that about special education and I agree, but I was listening to the answers around budget. And in that case, I feel candidate B's answers were stronger. So you can do that. You can talk about the strengths of answers or the examples this candidate provided or the experience this candidate has had. I feel a really a match for what we're looking for, or really something that we can build on. So you talk about that, and you'll come to see from listening to each other, Nancy will get a sense of if it's time to maybe ask for a motion. Somebody will say, I make a motion to, you don't make a motion to offer the position to, you make a motion to enter into negotiations for the position of with so-and-so. And then seconded, all in favor type thing. If that has a majority, you do not need to vote on the other 2 candidates, okay? You also want anyone coming into the position to have the full support of the school committee. So school committees generally say, I favored this candidate. I really favored this candidate, but whoever gets the position, I'm going to support because it's the Hopkinton Public Schools. I'm going to support the candidate. I'm not going to work against him. I'm not going to, to do anything. I'm going to try as hard as I can to make sure this superintendency is successful. So therefore, after the vote, if there is a majority, someone from the majority makes a motion. I make a motion that the school committee vote to show unanimous support for our new superintendent. And generally that should pass unanimously. It's just a way for the school committee to vote. Now, on rare occasions, school committees don't do this, and it's harder for a superintendent to come in with a divided board, and everybody knows it's a divided board. So I'm telling you that good grace is that you do something like that. It's your choice. Do you have any questions? It's harder than it looks. It's harder than it sounds. But if I were sitting right here and another search from a different country company was sitting, you certainly, if I were sitting right here, wouldn't say, well, we certainly aren't going with NASDAQ because that Carolyn Burke, she is clueless. You think of a better way to say it. So I'm saying use that same filter when you are deliberating. Any questions about that? All right. When you have deliberated and you've reached, you've taken this vote and you're good to go. And I think you should deliberate long enough so that you can have a unanimous vote. If you can't, you can't, and Nancy will know that it's time to vote. Then you stop, because what you don't want is for people in the audience to text the candidates before you have a chance to tell the candidates. So generally, and you can talk about this, you take a break and you call the 3 candidates. And generally you assign that. Chair calls the person you, and 2 other members of the school committee call the other 2 candidates. Any questions about that? Okay.
No, and that's the way we did it the last time, was we took a break and made the calls.
And they know Kyla and they know Susan, so it might be that the 3 of you make the call, since they'll have somebody that they know on the other end of the line, but that's up to you.
If there comes to be a situation where the school committee decides none of the candidates are meeting our criteria, do we then say we're stopping this process and going to?
You make a motion to extend the search. Okay. Have we gone through? I think when you read the packet, you'll get good questions to ask the references. That's difficult because you don't want to be on with a half hour with a reference. You have something you want to find out. If you have a particular question to ask, say to them, I know you probably would love to talk about this candidate for half an hour. I'm limited to about 10 minutes, so I'm going to ask you some specific questions. Do you be sure to read the successful candidate, review it. You've already written it. So, and your to-dos are on the front of this packet. Choose the dates for your interviews, choose the dates for your site visits, determine what you want to see. So you don't need me. I'm going to mute and give it back to Jamie to lead the rest of this meeting.
To me, I think you mean.
Excuse me, to Nancy.
That's okay.
I was looking at Jamie.
That's okay. Do people have any questions before we move into that piece of the meeting? So I guess the first question is, if we're going to try to do the site team visits next week, which I think is a great idea, what are people's thoughts on that for next week? Okay.
I find it okay.
Who's going? Are all
So
5 of you
That's,
going?
no, so typically what we've done is we have made sure we did not have a quorum because just in, I think the practicality, because it's going to happen during the day, might be more challenging for some than others, but I think we could do, looking back at the notes, what we did last time when we did site team visits is we did them all from 9:30 to 1 for one candidate. I don't know if we want to stick with that format or if we want to do, try to do 2 in one day and 1 in the other to make it 2 days. Do you, Carolyn, have a recommendation on whether we do 1 a day or whether we try to do 2 in one day to?
It just really depends on your fortitude and how far away the districts are. If you do 2 in one day, you might want to have 1 here, your internal candidate, and in the
Less travel.
afternoon or something like that, yeah.
Who from the school committee is available and is interested in serving on that, doing the site visits next week? If we could, and then we can narrow down which dates we want to do and fill in with other people in the district that we think would be important to be part of that team.
I'd be available.
I'm available on 2 of the days next week.
Okay.
Yeah, my availability is dependent on the date.
Okay.
Just a
Same goes for
thought.
me.
Kyle and I have already met these people. It might be a good idea for those who weren't on the screening committee to do the visits so that they come to the table with some ideas too.
So I actually sent out an email to different districts in Massachusetts today and asked them, other people who have participated in a superintendent search, who was on the not screening, but the visit committee, and how many people they had. And generally the answers that I got back was 3 to 4 people. And they usually picked the people who had been on the screening committee from the school committee because they did have that insight. So that now they had deeper knowledge because they had already heard about them. So now they can kind of pick out other things. So that was just a recommendation that I got today. Clearly does not have to be that way, but that was just their input that it made sense for the people who had already met them to go see them because they already had knowledge of them.
That does make a lot of sense because we also know what questions were asked and how they responded to them.
You could argue both ways. Communities do it a number of ways. And Sheena, thank you for that survey. We have groups that actually take members of the staff with them. They might take the special ed director, they might take the budget, finance. And while I'm speaking about that, sometimes school committee members ask staff to help with the question. You have to be careful because you have an internal candidate, but you can ask, if you're just thinking, you can ask somebody in the district with expertise in that area to help you phrase it. You go ahead. We're talking about your site visit team.
So I know that our one of our assistant superintendents has expressed interest in being part of the group as well. And he has done that with other, in another district as well. I think that might be an appropriate person to add in terms of other staff. I don't know, what others think, who other people think would be important to have in that group. But I think it would be good to have 2 school committee members if we're able to make the schedule line up.
I think it would be because special education and parents of special education have such a critical piece. I think it would be really good to have Abby Hanscom involved because she is so well respected by that community.
I think that's a great person to also invite. And I know Sheena, I don't know what your availability is, but I think you would be also another person. I think in the past, we've also had a teacher, but it could be complicated with teachers having to miss class time to do this. So I would want to check in with somebody, from the administrative side before we commit to having teachers pulled out for 2 or 3 days.
I think if we
Personally,
took, sorry, go ahead, Sheena.
Sorry. Personally, I can make myself available. I can work around things.
I was just gonna say, if we choose 2 school committee members who weren't part of the search team, or whatever, Sheena would also help bridge that gap that she was talking about because she's met all these candidates and can use that as perspective. Even though she's not a voting member in the end, she could share her perspective.
That's great.
You have to be really careful on the ride down and the ride back, not to be discussing the candidate. You can't do that.
I think I have enough experience where I could just discuss what I'm seeing at that time.
I think it would be ideal if we could get the site team visits done ahead of our school committee meeting next Thursday, because then we could use that time. We don't have a lot on the agenda. We could use that time for kind of to bridge into the next piece. But what I would want to know too, what are Chris and Jamie, what are your schedule limitations or availability?
Tuesday and Thursday are my flexible days next week.
Chris, what about you? What is your?
Monday is pretty wide open. Wednesday and Thursday are tough for me. Tuesday is fine if I'm done by noon, 12:30 p.m.
Can you take some time now and pick 3 days for your interviews the following week?
Yes, absolutely. So the interviews would be in the evening for us, correct? That's,
Right.
I think, probably the easiest thing for our, like a collective availability. And so that puts us out for the week of the 31st. Jamie and I have negotiations on April 1st, so I think that's probably not a good night.
And we have school committee on the 3rd.
And we have, well, we do, but we could potentially try to tweak things around since we haven't even planned that agenda yet. And we could do two interviews one night and one another. So are people available on Wednesday, the 2nd, to try to do
Yes.
2 interviews then?
I'm available.
I am not available.
You are not available. Okay. What is your availability that week, Chris? The week of 31st.
The 31st, I'm available. You're talking about just that night, correct?
Just in the evening. Yep.
1st and 2nd, I'm not available. And then the 3rd, I'm available. And the 4th, I'm not available. So really just the 31st and the 3rd.
Okay. I am not available the 31st.
So do you want to back it up and have, when you're doing your site visits, have something on the Friday before, have one next week. Get your site visits done early in the week, and then Thursday or Friday have an interview.
So could we do an interview on Thursday? Is that work for people? Because I know that we have really nothing on the agenda. I actually discussed this with Georgette ahead of time, other than we're going to need to have an executive session to discuss negotiations ahead of time, but we could devote a good amount of time to have one or potentially even two for doing
I think that'd be a great idea.
it, just because it seems like the following week is so challenging. So that would be the 27th. We do 2 interviews. And then look to do, Chris, what did you say for the week of the week after your availability? It was, you're not available the 1st and the 2nd, but are you available on the 3rd?
Yeah.
The 3rd, yes.
Okay, so that's also a school committee night, but I think we should prioritize this and then work our school committee meeting around that. So is that a problem to do them a week apart?
Oh,
Carolyn, is,
asking me? No. But you want,
or we could,
go ahead.
go ahead.
You're usually the candidate spends a day in the district and then has an evening interview. So you would want, I think that you could do your 2 outside candidates on the 27th, have one come for the district, and on the 3rd, have somebody come for the day in the district. Your internal candidate, you could be a little bit more flexible and
Yep.
have the day in the district, and then have the evening interview on the 27th or the 3rd.
Okay,
And then we need to make sure that those aren't broadcast until all 3 are finished.
Exactly.
correct.
Right.
Correct.
So
And
it would be, it would be just in what type of experiences you could set up on the 27th, the 3rd, and whatever other day you pick. And I guess that again falls to Sheena.
So it would seem to me if we have our final interview on the 3rd, that we could potentially do our
Deliberations.
deliberations the following week on the 10th. Is that,
You
that push?
you could, that's really pushing it back. I mean, you can, if that's the earliest you can do them.
Okay, so you wanted, I only said the 10th just because that happens to be
A
typically.
week away, but it's now, today
school
is the 20th, right? Or the 19th. So you're waiting, and next week, you're going to be doing your site visits, your first day in the district and your first evening interview. The following week, 2 other site visits and 2 other interviews, or however you do
I
that.
thought we were going to do 2 interviews on the 27th.
Okay, so if you're going to do 2 interviews on the 27th, then
We
while,
We could do a site visit on the 26th for the internal candidate, site visit on the 27th, not site visit, I'm sorry, day in district on the 26th, day in district on the 27th, and then have the 26th and 27th candidate interview on the 27th in the evening.
That's great.
are you going to do a site visit for your internal candidate, or just a day in the district?
So I feel like we should treat the 3 the same, because in my recollection from when we did the last superintendent search was that we did do all 3. and
Right,
we had a
right,
candidate.
Right.
And it was helpful because the candidate who ended up being our successful candidate, Dr. Kavanaugh, was able to bring in people to speak to the site team
Right,
that we wouldn't have otherwise had that conversation.
right. So Sheena, would it help if instead of, if on either the 20, if on the 26th, it was a site visit and
Well, can we pull off the site visits on the 24th and 25th? We do 2 one day. We'll do the in-district one day, and then the out-of-district one on that same day, since it's already in district. And then on the 25th or the 24th, we do the next candidate for the site visits. Then we have the internal on the 26th, an external candidate on the 27th come in district. We have those 2 interviews, and then the next week we have the other site visit and the interview on the same day.
sounds good.
So, and to go back to the school committee member piece, I think I like those dates, but is it okay to have different school committee members there on Monday and Tuesday since the availability is different?
Yes,
And then I've forgotten now, Jamie, it sounded like you could do Tuesday, and Chris, you could do Monday. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes, next week I can do the 24th on Monday.
Okay.
I think it's good to have as many eyes, you know, let people have a variety of opportunities to meet the candidates. And you're going to be escorting, somebody might volunteer to escort for part of the day. You don't have, if you volunteer to escort a candidate around the district, you don't have to do it all day. You can assign a staff member to take them around, but it's nice to have a school committee member take them around. And if they're going to be there all day, maybe one does it in the morning, one will do it in the afternoon. You switch off, however you want to do it.
And I think that's what we did last time was we had a school committee member who was helping get the candidate from location A to B where they were doing different things in the district.
Right. And that's an opportunity to meet them. I mean, while you're talking with them, you know, you don't have to just talk about the weather and buttercups. You can talk about something significant too.
So I guess the question I would have from the committee is 2 things. One is who would be interested in escorting candidates for either part or all of their day in district, in which day between if we're doing, we said the 26th, the 27th, and the 3rd for in district. Is that where Sheena, is that, those were the 3 dates?
That's the 3 dates I have, yes.
And then, so school committee members who would be interested in helping get the candidates around, and then school committee members who would be willing to help with reference checks. So
I'd be
I
more
would-
than happy to help with reference checks.
that's great. Thank you, Susan.
Mhm.
I'm also happy to do that as well. I mean, I think as many of us that are able to, particularly if we're looking at 12 to 15 reference, I think is what you had said, Carolyn, times 3 candidates, it would be helpful to have as many of us as are able to do reference checks, do that.
Would it be good to have like one person do all the reference check on one candidate or to mix it up?
So I think the idea was to mix it up and
Okay.
so that one school committee member might ask all of the questions about, talk about a particular topic for each of the 3 candidates with their references.
Or they
I
might,
thought it was
parents, somebody might say, I'll call the
Right,
parent.
exactly.
Somebody else will call the
Categories.
administrators, yeah. Somebody else might call
That's what I meant.
municipal leaders. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help with reference checks. I am available to act as an escort on the, I just lost track of
Yeah,
where
Thursday,
things are.
the 27th, I think, was the day that you
The
were available.
27th, I'm available. Yes, thank you.
I am available on the 26th, but I would not be available all day. So I would, if somebody wanted to split that day with me. Although I think that's also our in-district person who probably knows try to
That's
get around
on
to
the
Ada.
3rd, yeah.
The third, we would need somebody for sure.
Okay.
Do you want me to go with Evan just to make it all the same? Like if we do him on the 26th in the morning, would that, or do you need the morning?
So not talking about this site visit, I'm talking about the in-district piece. So it's actually, I've mixed up the dates because I've got like 15 dates in front of me. The in-district day is not the site. Yes, so the 26th is an in-district day, right? Not
Right,
the site
yeah.
team. So I think we were trying to get,
We were trying to get 2 on the 27th and him on,
yeah, but I was just talking about school committee members to go around with the different candidates to get them from A to B.
okay.
The 27th, I have cafeteria negotiations, so the 27th, I don't know if that's already covered by others, but the 27th won't work for me.
Okay.
I
Is
can do the
there-
27th in district.
And is there
And I could do
somebody
the
else-
25th out.
I can
Is
do
there
the 3rd
somebody-
in district.
You can do the third, Kyla for the third. Jamie for the 27th. Okay. And then Sheena and I, if nobody else wants to do the 26th, Sheena and I could maybe do that, divide that up. And I don't know,
You think Evan will be able to find his way around the district?
I do, but it gives, an opportunity, if
Yeah.
they all have an opportunity to have a little bit of that time with a school committee member
Mhm.
as well.
I do have a little time midday on the 26th, if that helps at all.
Can you define midday?
12 to 1, maybe a little after.
All right, so we can.
I could
discuss
do
that.
lunch. No, just kidding.
Yeah, that's it.
Now,
Um,
if the candidate is going to be in the district for the day, of course, you want to have a place. Sheena knows all this, but I'm saying it for the benefit of the school committee members. When they arrive, a place to hang up their jacket, maybe have a cup of coffee, then go off with who's ever escorting them around. You want to provide lunch, and you want to provide either tell them a great place, which I think you should provide a supper, just a quick, even if it's just a sandwich, and a little bit of time for them to decompress. So here's a sandwich and a room to yourself. You can go on your iPad, you can think about what you've seen today and all of that. And I think it's whatever you do for one, you should do for 3.
So do you suggest if we're providing lunch and dinner that it's, well, dinner mostly, is that only with that one school committee person, or should?
I would have them have it alone.
Oh,
I think that's their time to, and even lunch lunch generally is with the administrators. You pick a place, you tell the administrators, this is where the candidate's going to be for lunch, come on and meet, this is your time to meet. Some administrators will have met the candidate, showing them around the school. Some won't be able to make it, but you at least want to have a time that's set aside for administrators to meet the candidate.
I have a question about that. Do we get any of the feedback from the administrators of what they think?
They go right on the same website.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. You should really encourage who's ever escorting the candidate around, just gently remind people, if you'd like to speak on behalf of any candidate or give us any insight on behalf of any candidate, the links are on the web page. Now, what NASDAQ will do is, when you pick your day that you're going to deliberate, NASDAQ will, you tell us when you want those feedback links to stop, and then we'll send you whatever input we have, so that school committee members will have that available to them when they're deliberating.
Okay, to go back to the calendar, you were saying that the 10th seems like, it sounded like you feel like doing deliberations on the 10th is,
It seems
Too
a long
far out.
wait. It seems a long wait, especially for the people who interview on the 27th and then they're waiting 2 more weeks to hear how they did. But I understand. And if that's the first time you can do it, but I mean, can you?
so I guess I'm thinking if we have HCAM play back the interviews starting on the Friday, the 4th, sorry, go Friday, the 4th, Saturday, the 5th, and Sunday, the 6th, we would be good for any day during the week.
Yeah.
Jamie and I can't do the 8th because we have potentially have negotiations then as well. But would people be able to do Monday, the 7th or Wednesday, the 9th?
I'm out of town that entire week.
I'm available all week.
I'm here that week.
I can
Chris,
do
would you
everything
be
except for the 7th.
Chris, would you be able to Zoom in to do deliberations? Because I would hate to push that off to the following week. Is there a day you'd be available by Zoom?
Is it during the day or at night or?
In the evening? We could try to,
Wh- yeah, I'll have my phone wherever I'm at. I can, if it's in the evening or night, I'm sure I can be available. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
figure it out. Yeah.
does the 9th work for people? I heard somebody say the 7th does not work. What about the 9th, which is Wednesday?
9th is good for me.
9th is probably the best day for me that week. The Thursday I'll be on a plane in the evening, but the 9th is good for me.
Okay, that's great. All right, so then kind of next steps from here, just Sheena, you'll help get the scheduling piece figured out.
Yes,
For the notes we have, thank you, I appreciate
we can
that.
touch base tomorrow too, if that works.
Fabulous.
And you'll let me know, Sheena or Nancy, as soon as possible, what it is you want to see in the district, because the candidate has, to pull that together.
Yes, Sheena, you want to talk about that tomorrow morning?
Sure, yep.
Because I know you have data from what other people have done as well,
Yes.
or other districts, sorry, not individuals.
Yeah.
Okay, then if there is nothing else, we can do the
Nancy,
question. Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. You'll, or someone can email what everyone's doing on which days.
Yes,
Great.
tomorrow, get that out tomorrow. And then if people want to, do we want to go through what topics we want to do for questions right now, quickly beforehand? And then people can send their specific questions sometime between now and the beginning of the week to Sheena. That would be helpful.
I will also email every school committee member the questions that we asked at the interviews.
Is there somebody specific that wants to do budget?
I'm not comfortable with numbers.
Has any of this, I guess I'd be curious to see what the questions that have already been, to Sheena's point, that she's going
Right.
to send.
So we'll look at the question she's going to send, but just in terms of when we're coming up with our own questions. And I suppose we could do that because it's really a scheduling issue under kind of by email to let Sheena know what topic it is that you want. The suggested topics are in the packet.
Right. Jean,
I
it can't be two-way communication. So when you pick your two topics, I guess you just let Sheena know. Um, it's tricky because then if there's a big gap, you're asking 3 special education questions and no budget question, and that's a little.
Yeah, I can say right that we asked questions in each category during the screening.
Right, but that
So
was.
there was a curriculum question, a budget question, special education question, a diversity question, a leadership question.
Right,
So, and
But
that's what we want to make sure that we get done during the final interviews, is that there's, even if it's a different question, that there are questions that are covering all those topics.
you have to. Every school committee member should hear the answers to every category. And you will never hear the answers to the screening committee questions, so it's moot. You have to ask, if you're not comfortable asking a comprehensive budget question, ask your finance director to help you. But then you have to know what you're listening for. But you work with the superintendent and the budget. And there's also some pretty good examples of questions in the packet. So as school committee members working with a superintendent about the budget, what is it that you would want to ask him about that process? And what would you want to ask him about? I mean, you work very closely with the superintendent. So what do you need to ask in order to make your decision? Think about that as an individual school committee member. What do I really want to know how they've dealt with X? Or do I really want to know how they will deal with Y? So then I ask them, have you ever dealt with Y? Tell us about it so that I can get a sense of how they're going to act in this.
So the themes that have been called out here are accomplishments and challenges is one, leadership and professional development is another, budget is another, collective bargaining, then communication / gaining support for schools, conflict, dispute resolution and problem solving, and then curriculum development, implementation and assessment, decision-making, personnel evaluation, planning, problem solving.
Collaboration.
Yep.
You using your leadership team well, knowing, I mean, you can delegate. You can delegate, but not responsibility. You can delegate responsibility, but never accountability. So how do you feel comfortable delegating, especially with a team you don't know? So all of that stuff. If you reread the successful candidate profile, you should choose a question under, say, my question will come under instructional leadership, and then figure it out. I want to send a question under operations and fiscal management, and then figure out what it's going to be. So there should be like 2 questions under each of those categories, and then.
So is it okay if I make a working doc that I share with everybody? And so as the questions come in, they just already see and they don't have to ask an additional question?
I think that's a really good idea.
So
It's a good idea, but it violates open meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
But if you know what the questions are that people are going to ask, Shana, you would know if each school committee member sends you 2, you would know if people have, if they're repetitive or too similar. And because you're not a school committee member, you could say, if Jamie and I send you the same question, you could say, can you think of a different question to send back to one of us, or both of us? The thing is, there can't be a quorum of people in the discussion.
Oh, okay. So as long I can come back and say, we already have a question on this, or we already have 2 questions on this. Am I allowed to say we are missing questions about leadership? Or are we missing questions?
I think it would be fine to say, we already have a question on this. Would you develop a leadership question?
Okay.
Yeah, so that you're telling us the categories and we're just responding to you, so that we're not seeing each other's, because then that's open meeting law problems.
Okay. Right, but it would be good for Sheena to see the specific questions, just so that she knows that if there's a problem with three of us asking the same questions, because they kind of touch on similar categories.
So then ideally, we're sending Sheena sort of the category that our question is designed for and potential wording for our question.
Right. And there's plenty of good samples, and I'm going to send Jamie and Sheena some more to send out to you in the morning.
So do you want that to go to me, or do you want that to go to Jamie, or do you want it to go to everybody?
Probably you, Nancy.
I don't know why I keep calling her
For
Jamie.
clarity.
Looking at Jamie. I mean Nancy. I don't know why I keep saying Jamie, because she's right in front of me on my screen.
Because it's morning where I am, so it's really bright.
It just is. It just is.
Is there anybody that has a specific category they want to make sure that they're able to ask the question? And I think now would be the chance to say that, because we're in an open meeting. If you know that you have a specific category you want to discuss, if you want to go ahead and call that category right now, that's fine. If not, we can.
I'd like to talk about that communication, getting support for schools, community engagement piece, that like community leader piece. I remember that being a really strong theme in the focus group that I attended.
You have another category? I think you and Chris should go first with your categories before Susan and
I can do the business questions. Budget and stuff.
I would also be happy to ask a special education question.
I can do curriculum.
Our goal
the
is
end-
two, is that right? Two each?
Two questions each, but it would seem like one, in my right, Carolyn, one from each category.
At least, yes. I mean, not two questions on the same thing from one person.
I would be interested in collaboration. And communication. Oh, wait, you had communication too.
That might be, yeah, that might overlap quite a bit.
Okay.
Do you mean like the
Um,
conflict, dispute, resolution, problem solving, Kyla?
Yes, I can do that.
Or if you want to take over, like,
I was thinking
I-
leadership.
oh, the
say
leadership,
that.
professional leadership / I pulled the
Leadership.
categories from the document that Carolyn
Yeah.
sent.
I was kind of thinking about conflict resolution and collective bargaining.
Okay, and I will do the opening and closing questions. I'm happy to do anything else that, if we find that we have gaps, but
I think you also might want to do one, Nancy, on school. How does the candidate work with the school committee? I mean, so
Good.
work something out like
I'll work
roles,
something.
responsibilities, or something like that.
For my second category, it's not on the list here, but I'm really interested in student support and diversity.
That's good.
All right, so everybody do you feel like you have a sense of what your homework is to develop the questions on?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're having them to Sheena by the end of the week? Okay.
Yes. All
What
right.
what time would you like them, Sheena? I know you have to put them all together.
Any time on Friday. I'll likely work on these on the weekend on the weekend. So that's fine.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know there are definitely people in the community that were interested in hearing this. And I want to thank the screening committee. I know we do at some point need to disband the screening committee as well, but that's not on tonight's agenda. But also just want to thank all the people who applied and expressed interest in the position. And I think it's a testament to our district that so many people
You too.
wanted to get involved and to apply. So, thank you. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn if somebody would feel so moved to do that.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Jamie, a second by Kyla, and we'll do a roll call starting with you, Jamie,
Yes.
Kyla,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
and I am a yes. And so we are adjourned at 7:28. And for anybody watching at home, the materials that we had discussed earlier with the public resumes will be up on the website tomorrow under the superintendent search tab. So thank you all. And thank you, Carolyn. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.